Greetings from Basel, where today I'm going to be speaking with Pierre-Alain Ruffieux, who became the CEO of Lonza Group about 9 months ago in November 2020. Lonza was founded in the Swiss Alps about 120 years ago, and of course over 120 years its activities have evolved significantly, and particularly including through a pretty active acquisition journey over the last 15 years. It currently operates across 5 continents with about 15,000 employees and sales in excess of 4 billion euros. The company has been doing very well. Over the last 5 years, the stock price has been multiplied by 4, and it has been multiplied by 2 over the last 18 months since the start of the COVID crisis. This places the company with a market capitalization of about $60 billion, which qualifies for the top 10 on the Swiss market, is just below the ABB market capitalization, is about on par with UBS, and is twice, as a comparison, the market capitalization of Credit Suisse, of Swisscom, and of Swiss Re. So, Pierre-Alain, delighted to be here with you. Now, a number of us probably heard about Lonza for the first time in connection with COVID. Lonza is not exactly a household name, in part probably because you're a B2B company as opposed to a B2C company, and so as consumers, we're not as familiar with the company. But clearly, there's a lot more to Lonza than the COVID vaccine that you're working or that you're producing for Moderna. And there's also a lot more to Lonza than the contract manufacturing that you guys are doing. So tell us about Lonza's activities.
So Jean-François, first of all, welcome in our place in Basel. Really my pleasure to have you here. And you are right, I would say, pre-COVID, Lonza was not very well known. I think we are very known in the pharma business as we serve them. But for most of the public, except some people living close to our place, I think we were not really a known entity. But you are right, I think we are much more than making a vaccine. I think our history goes back 125 years ago in the Valais, and we have always been active in the chemical field. So initially, we were using electricity to make some chemical component, and then we moved to petrochemistry. But more or less 25 years ago, the company made a very smart move to move in the contract manufacturing with biotechnology. And this is really the foundation of the modern Lonza. What we are doing is basically 2 things. We develop processes, technical processes, so it's way of manufacturing product, and we produce product for the pharma industry. And in fact, we have 2 major types of clients. Either some of the big pharma, and you know the name, we have 2 big examples in Basel, but also many of the startup companies where we develop process for them and when we make the product for them. And Moderna is a good example of this second category.
But so it's not only about manufacturing, it's also about developing.
Correct. But for pharma product, there is 2 things. There is developing the product itself, so having an idea of a new molecule,
right.
But there is also the capability to make it in large scale. So we don't invent new molecule, but our expertise is to scale up a process to make it available. And I think the COVID crisis was a good example. A vaccine was existing, but the challenge of the world was to scale it up and to put it in a factory to make enough for everybody. And this is really the core business of Lonza.
Okay, but in many areas, not just vaccines. You do also a lot more across other therapeutic areas.
Exactly.
Or other types.
So we do basically more or less all the technology existing. So we don't go into much to detail. And as a customer, you may buy sometimes some tablets, or you go to doctor for an injection. So our specialization is biologics, so the more complicated product, and we make the active substance. But we make also ADC, which is a combination of biologics with chemical part to treat different cancers. But we are the world leader in making capsule. Quite often when you buy the drug, it's packaged in a capsules, and we are making them too. So we have a broad range of services to serve the pharma industry.
Now, having said all of this, we still are dealing with the COVID crisis, and so this is a time which is very relevant for this is a topic which is very relevant for people and still also probably preoccupying for some of us. So let me stay on the vaccine and the Moderna partnership just for a few seconds. So you're making the vaccines with them, but this is not the only aspect of your partnership. I think that in May 2020, Lonza signed a partnership, a 10-year partnership with Moderna, and it covers the vaccine, but also other products. So tell us about this partnership and also how it came about. Yeah. Did you guys call them? Did they call you? How did this work?
I'm happy to do so. You know, it's a typical example of a company, a well-established startup, having a need on manufacturing. And again, Lonza brand is well known, so they approach us. Probably they approach some other company, and they were looking for capability to scale up the process, to manufacture it, and not only for this product, but also for other products on the future. And we have developed a very nice offering in our facility, which is called IBEX. Basically, it takes a lot of time from an idea to completion. And what we are doing as a company, we are investing in a shell, in preparing all what we need for pharma production. And when a customer is coming, we can turn the key on and go very fast. I think it's why we were able to produce for them within 6 to 10 months compared to a normal scheduling, which is 2 to 3 years. And this is really the advantage we can offer.
Now, please allow me a technical question here. The mRNA technology that is used in this vaccine is new, at least for the public. And of course, it has raised a number of questions, including in terms of the safety for humans. Now, you're a scientist yourself. You have a PhD in biotechnology from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, and you're also a specialist in the area of drug safety. So how safe is this technology? And I guess not only in the context of COVID, but also in the context of other possible areas of treatment.
Thank you. It's a great question. No, I don't want to speculate on long-term safety, but I think the public need to understand the idea is not new. The first time that mRNA technology was described was in 1990. So it's 30 years old. Okay. And if you have a look on companies like Moderna, BioNTech, they were founded more than 10 years ago. And in between, they have done a lot of study. So for me, what is really exciting with this technology, we use your body to do drugs. So without going too much to the detail, in the old methodology for vaccine, you inject to the patient some part of the virus, which is deactivated. Your immune system recognizes it, make antibody.
Right.
What is really smart with the mRNA approach is you don't inject a part of the virus, you inject the coding of the virus, and your own body makes the protein and then detect it and make antibodies. So it's a very smart way to activate your immune system. And again, we have more than 10 years data showing that it's working. It's enabling making antibody. If you see today, so many patients injected with very little side effect. So yes, there is always a question mark, which may remain in long term, but the amount of data and the risk benefits seems to be very, very positive.
Now, when you guys committed to producing this vaccine, you knew that this was going to be a high stake sort of affair, right? You knew that there would be a lot of pressure. Clearly, some of your competitors have had challenges on this front, but you have stayed completely out of the public eye, which means that basically you guys have not encountered any problems, and you've been very successful. What did you do? What has allowed you to be so successful? Earlier, you said, look, we're pretty good at this. You know, we're pretty good at taking molecules and designing processes and ramping it up. Is that all it was, or did you have to add additional resources or additional skill? Was this any different from your previous experiences?
So I would like perhaps to clarify two aspects. First of all, in the pharma business, in our business, we support many companies having new products, and some products are successful, and some products are not successful. And this is our daily business. Now, if you have a look, phase 3 product being successful and then making the market, it's 80-90% success rate. So we are used to have failure. So it's all normal business.
Okay.
I think the success of the product is not Lonza's success. It's in this case Moderna or another one because they invented this product. Yes, the challenge for us to scale it up in very short time, to produce as much as possible to serve the world, this is a real challenge.
Right.
I think we are used to do that, but this one was specifically significant. And yes, we have done things differently because timing was so important. So we were speaking with suppliers to accelerate delivery of product. We need also a lot of people, multiple hundred people in a very short time. So I think it was reported in the press. So it was a challenge to get people, to train people. We get nice support also from other companies. So I would be lying if I would say it's not a challenge, but I would say it's all core business and we are used to that.
Right. So it was a different scale, a different intensity and a different speed, but fundamentally the process was your core business.
Correct.
Okay. Now, one last question on the COVID front. We are recording this discussion at the end of the summer of 2021. So in Europe in particular, there are millions of people that are coming back from their summer holidays, and there is a Delta variant that is proving to be particularly contagious. And so contamination levels are rising, and some governments might be tempted to tighten things up yet again. How long, in your view, is it going to take for the world to learn to live with this virus and to be able to work with this virus? Is there an end to this?
No, I would be very happy to be able to answer this question, but honestly, nobody knows, or I don't know a person knowing that for certain, and it will be speculation. What we can learn from previous pandemic and knowing also what's happening is viruses. No, viruses are like bacteria. If you use antibiotic, the nature is done in such a way that the bacteria find a way to resist to antibiotic. So the fact that we have variants, we have seen that in the past, and I believe we will continue to see them. The question is, are we going to see variants which are more or less in the same category, where the current vaccine set are effective, or not? If not, it could be dramatic. And we can start again a cycle. But here I'm not an epidemiologist, and it's difficult to say. My personal belief is we are probably not out of the wood. It will continue. I'm carefully confident that humanity has learned to go with that. I think we know the classical social distanciation. We know even with very simple tools like masks, we can do a lot. We have also technology allowing to produce quickly vaccine or new vaccine if needed. I would be personally surprised if we go back to normal immediately. But I sincerely hope I'm wrong.
So I think a question that is very interesting in this context is, how did you make sure that this, again, relatively small part of the business, but very visible part of the business, which needed to be scaled up very rapidly and so on, how did you make sure that it did not overly distract the rest of the organization and that you were able to continue to not only keep the balls up in the air on the other sides, but also continue to be as energetic and driven and as high performance in these other parts? I mean, how did you fight the distraction?
It was definitively a challenge. But perhaps a small precision. Many of the other drugs we are doing are life-saving. Again, we make for some major pharma company drugs for fighting cancer. If people are not getting that, they have very bad outcome. So it's not that we are doing ice cream on one side and COVID vaccine on the other one. So both are very important. What was key for us, what was really new in the vaccine, it was the magnitude and the urgent need. So yes, we were using all scale to bring more people to support the vaccine while also recruiting people from outside. So we were able to flex some resources. But yes, it was important to do permanently both. So to answer to this large need to support humanity. And I think we have demonstrated we were able to do that, still by continuing to do normal business.
And what I'm hearing from you is one of the things that helped is the fact that we know that these other things are also mission critical.
Exactly.
Okay. So in that sense, you live in a world of mission critical, and here there was one that was, again, more urgent and more intense, but you're saying it was not that difficult to stay focused on everything.
Exactly. And as you mentioned properly, for the public, it's a huge visibility on the vaccine, but it's a small proportion of our business. So we were able to bring resources from other parts to support it.
Now, one of the things that you did over the last few months is to define or redefine the company's purpose. It is now to enable a healthier world. And your website also states, and here I quote, that in fulfilling our purpose, we also hope to achieve our group vision to bring any therapy to life. Over the last 2-3 years, a number of companies have also revised their purpose and talked about it and emphasized it more. In some cases, it has worked. In other cases, the companies have generated a certain amount of cynicism internally and or externally. So, because there's a perception that the company's actions don't necessarily match the purpose and the vision. How important and meaningful within Lonza today are this new purpose and this new vision, and how do you ensure that they are indeed relevant and inspiring for everyone?
No, thank you for the great question. Two aspects to mention regarding this topic. The first one I mentioned before, by selling the chemical business, we were able to focus on that. So it was very important in the company for management to be able to speak on one voice. And yes, in the past we were having the pharma people really focus on that part, and the other chemical people focusing on other parts. So the fact that we were divesting one part of the business allowed us to focus on it. Then we involve many people in the company really to see what is in our gene, what is the passion of our people, what are we doing. And clearly one of the passion we are having is using technology, using science, using energy of people to solve technical issue. And this was really resonating with people. So by putting this vision together, we believe it was really a good description of what we are doing, right, showing the passion of people. But you are right, I think it's easy to put some word on a paper. What is much more important is to have every single employee buying it and displaying to the world is what we are doing. But I believe what we have demonstrated during COVID, bringing any therapy to life, is this kind of example and underscoring the value of these messages.
Now, related to this, a few months ago, Lonza was recognized by the Ethisphere Institute as one of the world's most ethical companies. Ethisphere is a US-based company that defines and measures corporate ethical standards and recognizes companies that excel in this area. And Lonza was one of 2 Swiss-based companies that were recognized, and also one of only 2 pharma companies thus recognized. How important was it for Lonza to receive this distinction, and what do you think the company has done well to generate, of course, the situation and the performance and the behavior that led to this recognition?
Yeah. So for me, it's very important, and it's always a pleasure and recognition to be recognized by outside people about what we are doing. What I would like to stress 2 aspects. No, to be successful in business, for me, we need to do the right thing the right way. So the how is very important. Are we engaging people? Are we respecting human rights? Are we supporting sustainability? There is many aspects on the cultural aspect of the company which are very important. And this prize was recognizing that. At the same time, it's not the end of a journey. It's not that we put a prize and we have a nice...
now we're okay, we're ethical.
It's really, there is much more work to be done. And some people are saying we cannot have a sustainable business or company in a non-sustainable world. So it's our responsibility to continuously work on this aspect and make sure we have the highest possible standard. So it's very important to us, but much more work on this dimension.
And so, can you identify 1 or 2 either particular initiatives or particular domains where you are particularly vigilant on this?
No, there is multiple one. We mentioned we are working in the pharma industry, which is highly regulated.
Right.
So we are under the scrutiny of the FDA, of Swissmedic, of many others. So the capability to say what we do and do what we say is very important. And this is a permanent battle to educate our workforce, to make some tests, to demonstrate that. So this compliance is critical. But there is many other aspects. No, all products at the end are injected to patients. So they need a perfect quality. So there is many aspects which require strong value and behavior of our people.
What strikes me as I'm listening to you is that you are indeed working in a world of strong compliance, but I don't hear it as a constraint. What strikes me as I'm listening to you is you seem to embrace this and say these requirements are necessary and they're good for us and we need to embrace them and be at the forefront of this.
No, exactly. You probably know that I have been the chance to be quality head for large pharma company before this position. And really I learned if you see a regulation like a constraint, you develop the wrong behavior. You will try to find solution to avoid it.
Right.
You will go for shortcut. I see rather that in the opposite, the regulation has a great purposes. Make sure that when you as a customer buy a drug, you get the right product. It's going to be safe, it's going to be effective. So what is important in the company, what can we develop to achieve this goal? And it's not only in following regulation, it's in exceeding regulation. If our employee understands the goal and the regulation, they will do two things. They will, in most of the case, follow the regulation, which is really great.
Right.
But as they understand, if something strange is happening, they will understand what is the purpose and they will take even additional action. So developing the understanding and the full buying is much better than just trying to follow the regulation.
Right. Pierre-Alain, I would now like to shift the focus of this discussion to you. So first, a few words about you. You were born and raised in Switzerland. As I mentioned earlier, you were trained as a scientist with a master's and a PhD from EPFL. And you've devoted your entire career to the pharma industry with about 5 years at Serono, 12 years at Novartis, and then 5 years at Roche, with a strong focus on technical development, manufacturing, and quality. And then this is your first job as a CEO. And I guess you didn't get this job by chance, right? At some point, you had to raise your hand and say, hey, how about me? So what led you to do so? What led you to say, I've done what I wanted to do in this area, and now I'd like to lead an organization?
No, thanks to the question. I know it's not by doing the current position that is the first time leading an organization. And being a kid, I was never having the dream to be the CEO of Lonza or a similar company. But it's more a kind of natural development. As you say, I have some scientific and technical foundation. For me, it was always important to be serious about what I was doing, achieving results, delivering value for the company. And by doing that, you get a broader scope, and with step by step, you move from purely technical to more management position, to motivate team, get sure you can get results. And then with the time, I was having the chance both at Roche and at Novartis to be in the executive team. So then again, while my responsibility was technical aspect, you are definitively exposed to the business. And I think it's a natural development in your career to move from some content aspect or scientific aspect in my case to more business aspect. But it's not now that I was exposed to business, but it's starting more than 10 years ago.
I get that. But there's still a difference between you're a member of an executive committee and you're the head of that executive committee, right? Including in terms of external exposure and external pressure. So are there some aspects of the job that, again, I understand you understood business and you'd managed large numbers of people, but is there still something which is different with being the number one?
I would say yes and no. You know, in any job I had in the past, there is things which are really exciting.
Okay.
There is things which are okay, and there are things you like less. Perhaps we have been lucky not to be in this position, but I have seen that permanently in my life, and it's not different in this position and in the previous one. Yes, you get more exposed to shareholder, to media. You are the face of the company, but otherwise, a different aspect of leadership, caring about your people, giving the space to the team to be successful. I don't see that.
That remains.
Really different.
Okay.
And this is probably for me, during the development of my career, a key learning. Starting in your life, you are quite often a single contributor. So you get things done because either you do it yourself or you don't do it yourself.
Right.
With the time, it's really, are you having the capability to create a microcosm where the team can perform? And if you create the right condition, the success will come. And this has not changed for the last 10 years. Yet the circumstances are different, but the goal of creating this space, getting the right piece together, the right people, and then the magic happens, this is not changing. And this is really one aspect which excites me in a leadership position, being a CEO or being another leadership position.
So same principles, different context, different breadth, but same principle.
Correct.
Now, you took over after a not so stable period at the top of the company. In late 2019, the CEO resigned after 9 months on the job, and the chairman of the board took over ad interim until you joined about a year later. Did this situation create an additional challenge, or was it instead an opportunity that people were waiting for you, were waiting for a more permanent successor?
No, I don't expect people waiting for me or for any person. I think we can always find good people. You are right, it was a couple of management changes in the company, and this is definitively not helping. At the same time, I would like to underscore that as you started the discussion, the company is very successful for the last 4 or 5 years, so the fundamentals are very good. And I was very fortunate to join it with the chairman, which is really taking the lead in the meantime. Very good connection, very good discussion. So for me, I was seeing that more than an opportunity.
Okay. Last question. In 3-4 months, we will all be making New Year resolutions. It's the triumph of hope over experience. What will be your top professional resolution for 2022?
Probably two things. One for the company is really to reflect, to challenge the current situation, to make sure that my team, Lonza, has the best condition to grow. So back to the previous point I mentioned, how can I contribute to create the microcosm where the company is successful? And this is really something which is coming often on my agenda. Personally, it's the same for many years. Is always what new can I learn? How can I be better in some of the aspects?
And do you have 1 or 2 aspects? And I won't ask you which ones, but do you have 1 or 2 aspects that you identify?
I have more than 1 and 2.
Okay.
And yes, I think it's important to continue to make progress on some of the dimensions you identify.
Thank you very much for your time, for your candor, and for your insights. And best wishes with continuing to create a healthier world. Thank you very much, Pierre-Alain.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to host you here today.